Hello, friends and family. Welcome to the EDUCA DPS podcast. My name is Javier Ibarra, and I am the Senior Manager of Media and Public Relations for Denver Public Schools. Today, our guest is Eric Love from the Office of ECE or Early Childhood Education at Denver Public Schools. Eric, welcome to the EDUCA DPS podcast. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm elated to be here.
That's fantastic. Well, let's get to it. I want to know, Eric, this is very important for our listeners and our viewers. What is pre-K education?
So I have been involved in pre-K education my entire career. 20 plus years I have been on the front lines of advocating for pre-K education. So that shows how much I am committed to this work.
Wow.
And how much I believe in the power of pre-kindergarten education. And so what pre-K does for families and for children is, I look at it as if like it is the foundation of a house.
Okay, explain that to me.
A house will not last if you don't build the foundation correctly.
Okay.
I'm a person, for the first time in my life, I actually built a house from scratch. And I can't, and because of that experience, I realized the importance of the foundation and all that I learned around, if the foundation is not right, whatever the builders build on, it will collapse over time if that foundational piece is not right, if the soil is not right, if all of the pieces that it takes to make that house stand over time is not right, then it will collapse over time. That's the same way that I look at pre-kindergarten education. It is the foundation in which, if children have an opportunity to have that level of foundation, it is going to serve them well in their capacity to be able to operate in the world in a very positive way, in a very substantial way. Pre-kindergarten education, it serves as the route to be able to provide kids with social and emotional development, physical development, pre-reading readiness skills. It is everything that a child will need to be able to navigate through the world of education and beyond. And so it is such a powerful piece to our world. And as an advocate of pre-kindergarten education, I would encourage every single parent to take advantage of that opportunity if it presents itself to them, because our kids and what I've learned through my years of expertise and the experiences that I've had, that when we allow our children to have a head start, when we give our children the pieces to be successful in the world, then that can only lead to success if we take advantage of those opportunities.
I'm really glad you said that, and it's very interesting. I have the most fondest memories of my time in pre-kindergarten or ECE. I've always called it ECE because I'm a product of Denver Public Schools.
Yes.
And I remember my ECE teacher, her name is Miss Rojo. So Miss Rojo, if you're out there, shout out to you, because I remember being in your class at Barnum Elementary.
Yes.
But I have more questions for you. This year, I know that with the universal pre-K happening in Colorado, a wonderful opportunity for families. What does that mean for the DPS families? What does the enrollment process look like this year?
So the thing that I will be able to speak to that is there are so many unknowns. So I just want to be upfront and honest around that. There are so many unknowns in terms of how this process is going to roll out. I think the thing that I'm really excited about when it comes to the state's knowledge around this and the state's goal around UPK programming is that it will open up opportunities for children to be able to be exposed to pre-kindergarten education, which we know that if you know anything about brain development, if you know anything about how kids develop from birth through around 5 to 6 years of age, we know that that is a time where kids are really learning, and their brain cells and all of their capacities are being built around what they're going to show up to be in this world. And so we know that that is all of, so much research points towards how important that time is for kids. And so what I love about what the state is doing around this new UPK process is they are trying to expose and provide opportunities to as many kids as possible. I'm on board with that because I'm a proponent of early childhood education. And so with that being said, there are still so many unknowns about this process. It will be new to DPS. It will be new to many of our families. DPS has done a fabulous job in the last 10 plus years of a school choice process in which we have had multiple children and siblings of families that have repeatedly come across DPS schools, in which we have provided a foundation of learning how to navigate the school choice process. And so for our 4-year-olds this year, it's going to be a little different for our families. And we know that change sometimes is hard for a lot of our families. But what I can tell you at this part is that we are on board. We are on board with the state. We're on board to be an open learning platform where we're learning with the state. And there are going to be some things that are going to happen with this UPK program that the state did not anticipate, that DPS did not anticipate. But at the end of the day, our main goal is to get as many pre-kindergarten children in seats, because we know the power of PreK and what it can do for the success of children, for their educational journey and for their life journey. And so as an employee of DPS and as someone that's the director of schools for DPS, we're going to work with the state. We're going to learn about the things that are going to work well. And we're also going to learn about the things that don't work well. Absolutely. Sometimes when you're launching a new program, you can try to anticipate some of the downfalls, but until you actually jump into the water, you don't know what's going to exist. And so that's kind of where we are with this process. We're just open to learning. We're open to being flexible. We're open to working with the states. We're open to making sure as many kids as possible have an opportunity to pre-kindergarten education.
Eric, is it safe to say that this year, very different than last year, to ask our families for a little patience while we navigate this together? Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Javier, because that is exactly what we're asking. We're all in this together. I think at the end of the day, if you are a parent and you are enrolling your child into a pre-kindergarten education, you see some value. You might not understand all of the values that come along with having your child in a pre-K program, but we're asking that everybody has patience, everybody has understanding. I think everyone has good intentions. The state does, DPS does, and we're all just trying to make the best decisions for our earliest young learners. I've been in education for 20 plus years.
Wow.
I've worked for 3 major school districts, and I would say that in my experiences that the focus of education has always been that 3rd through 5th grade level. Sure. That a lot of research goes towards showing that if a child does not read by 3rd grade, the complications that they will have in terms of graduating from high school, going to college, doing other life choices that they choose to do to be a positive contributor to the world, that those chances are sometimes lessened. Yes. And so I'm a big proponent of making sure that we set our children up for success, whatever path they choose. And so what I love about what the state is doing is they realize that we can't just start at 3rd grade. And I think Denver Public Schools is another example of that. They are very, very interested in a very, they're very proponent of early childhood education. They're very invested
Sure.
in what we're doing. They see the importance of that. And so there's not just a level of focus on 3rd through 5th grade, where we know those are some critical areas in education. They're also looking at the foundational pieces of how do we meet kids before they get to 3rd grade? What kind of opportunities can we provide to students before they get to an area in which might lead to a dead end wall? Mm-hmm. And so I'm very grateful that the state is in alignment with DPS in terms of, the research says what it is. It's been around for years. I've been in this, I've been in this field for 20 plus years. It has not changed. Like the foundational pieces in which we provide for our kids, that is going to set them up for success. And so I'm excited that the state sees that, they understands that. DPS is a proponent of that. And we're trying to figure out a system to make that more accessible for all children.
So, Eric, what I'm hearing from you is a little patience. Is there a current process right now? I know that the state has a online form or application that they do, and I believe we have one as well. Is it safe to say that parents and families should fill both out, maybe just one, maybe go straight to the state's website to make sure that they're getting their kiddos into pre-kindergarten?
So absolutely. And as anything that arises new, right? It might change by the hour.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because we're all trying to figure it out. And as we're all thinking about it, and as school districts are thinking about this state process, we're all bringing things to the table to say, hey, did you think about this? Or did you think about that? At the end of the day, I think, we're going to have to just jump into the water.
Sure.
And we're going to have to help each other swim through this new way of looking at how do we provide access to all of our early learners. But with that being said, yes, there are going to be some triumphs, but the state has, they're indicating that they have technology support and things in place that are going to be able to support parents. On the DPS side of things, we also are trying to be proactive and thinking about things that maybe the state didn't think about. We have a very diverse system in DPS. And one thing that I love about DPS and why I chose to work for DPS is it is not a one size fits all. We realize that we are a really diverse community. We have people from all walks and backgrounds of life, and that we have programming. One of our goals in DPS is to have programming that fits the needs of all of our families that choose to participate or choose to send their children to DPS. And so we have multiple programs that we have an opportunity to provide to our families. And so with that being said, we know that that doesn't necessarily coincide with the state's process around
And what they're trying to do.
of what they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, like I said before, we're trying to be open to the process. We're learning alongside the state, and we hope that just as we're learning and trying to make it trying to make this process as simple and as less harsh to our families as possible.
Reduce the friction.
All of those kinds of things, that we are working with the state, again, with the end goal of trying to provide opportunities to as many families as possible. Because at the end of the day, regardless of the process, the state and DPS are on the same level. We want to provide access to pre-K education to as many families as possible.
And I think it's safe to say also that our families are all on the same level. We're all playing for the same team. We all want the same goal.
Absolutely.
Eric, what are some of the things, and you touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the things that DPS has done or still needs to do to get ready for UPK?
So I think we just need to continue working with the state, to be honest, and trying to navigate through this process. Some of the things, we have a full team of people that are on board, including our school choice office, including people that work within our early education department that has been on top of all of these changes and really trying to navigate through this space. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to, again, make sure that we are prepared to allow and to offer as many seats as possible to families who want to be a part of pre-kindergarten education. And so that's what DPS does. We continue to do that on a daily basis. We don't know all the answers. There are still so many unknowns. There's still so many unknowns that we don't know. But what I'm confident about is one thing that we all have in common is we want the best for our children.
We should.
Period.
Yes.
And so if that means navigating through this space, if that means navigating through things that we didn't think about that could occur as a result of this process, we're all on board to try our best to navigate through that so that as many children as possible have an opportunity to pre-kindergarten education.
Thank you for that. My next question for you is, how can parents get this information? Is there a website, a phone number, place they call? Where can we send parents and families to get more information as this ever-changing landscape is continuously moving?
Absolutely. I always encourage parents to go to our Denver Public Schools website.
Okay.
And so if you go to our Denver Public Schools website and you go to the search engine, you can type in two areas that will give you information. You can type in our school choice, just type in school choice, period. That will take you to information around the school choice process, the changes that are happening as a result of the new UPK process that is constantly being updated. And then the other thing is, if you just want to know about early education in general, what we offer in DPS, you can also go to our early childhood department website, which if you just go to the Denver Public Schools website, you type in early childhood education, you'll see what we're all about. You will see our mission, you will see our vision, you will see the different types of programming that we offer. That's the one thing that, again, I think I mentioned this earlier. The one thing that I love about DPS is we're not one size fits all. We know that children are different. We know that families have different needs. We know that children have different needs. And so we offer a variety of programming around what's in the best interest of kids, ranging from traditional ECE learning, Montessori learning, Head Start learning. We're really thinking about how do we really connect to all of our families, because we want children to come to DPS.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you,
Yes.
if you're looking for a good school district,
This is it.
DPS is a good school. We're not perfect. I say this all the time. I had years of being a principal for 8 years as a principal
Wow.
in an early childhood center. And I would tell families all the time, we're not perfect.
No.
We make mistakes just like the rest of the world make mistakes. But what we have that really makes it stand out is we have a heart for children.
Yes.
And that's what I can say about DPS. We have a heart for children. We have a heart for our early learners. We want them to be successful. We understand the importance of pre-kindergarten education and why children should attend preschool. And so we're encouraging our families. We're not going to let this new UPK process steer us away from doing what we know will benefit our children in the long term, not only for their educational journey, but for their life journey.
Right.
I'm a product of early childhood education. I'm a product of Head Start.
There you go.
I'm so glad that my mama put me in a Head Start program. I'm so glad that my mama, when she didn't even know about early childhood and benefits of that, she chose to put me in a place that was offered at that time. And all of these years later, we're still offering that same level of experiences for our parents. And so I don't care what walk of life you're in, pre-kindergarten education will benefit your child and will give them foundational pieces that will set them up for their life.
I think it's important for our families listening or watching this on YouTube that from the ECE teacher all the way up to the superintendent, this is a big focus and it's important.
Yes.
I was actually at a school earlier this year, and a quick side note, it's the first day of school, and I was on a tour with the superintendent, and we were at Hallett Academy, and shout out to Hallett. And we walked in, and one of the first classrooms that we visited was a ECE classroom.
Sure.
And it dawned on the superintendent and on all of us, it was these kiddos' first day of school
Yes.
ever.
Yes.
And when I was overcome with emotion, to be
Yes.
honest with you,
Yes.
a little bit right now, actually. But it was just amazing to see that interaction and what those students were experiencing. And because of that, I wanted to ask you this next question is, as a parent and going into this, there are a lot of things that new parents might not know, right? If you have an older child and this is your second, third, or fourth, or fifth child, and you're taking them to school, then you've been through this process before. But as a parent of your first child, some of the questions that might arise are, what ages do you serve? What are some of the ages that, is it just 3? Is it just 4? Do we do 2-year-olds? Who do we serve? So that's my next question, Eric.
Absolutely. So currently in DPS right now, we serve 3 and 4-year-olds.
Okay.
And so I've been with DPS almost 10 years now. And so over the last several years, I've seen more parents of 3-year-old children actually enroll in programs, and I am all for it. When I was a principal at one of the ECE centers in Denver Public Schools, when I first started there, we didn't have full day 3-year-old programming, but I saw it as a need in the community, as that was always my focus, to really look at what are the needs within the community in which I'm serving. And a 3-year-old full day programming was necessary.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I was in a school where we actually operated in a space where we really operated based on the needs of the community, and that's where their need was. And so I started several of my classrooms as a full day 3-year-old programming, and it was a huge success. And in my tenure of being in DPS for almost the past 10 years, that need for 3-year-old programming has escalated, and the need for full day programming.
Yes.
And so I'm very excited about that. But yes, we serve 3-year-olds, we serve 4-year-olds. What we're also experiencing now in DPS is we're looking at how our 3s and our 4s can be role models for each other, which is another unique thing that we're doing in DPS. And so we have a lot of mixed age classrooms,
right,
where we have a mixture of 3s and 4s. And I started that as my post tenure as a principal in DPS, and it was like the best thing that I ever seen in my life.
Right.
An opportunity for 3s and the 4s to be in mixed age classrooms, and for those 4-year-olds, you would have thought that they were adults,
right,
because they had been in 3-year-old programming, so they knew the system already for a year, right? And so they were role models for those 3-year-olds, and the 3-year-olds picked up from the 4-year-olds, and some of the 3-year-olds were more mature than the 4-year-olds, so they all just learned together. And so it was just like this beautiful universe of just learning and how to navigate through this world of education as we know it, right? And so I'm very excited that, a lot of our programs in DPS are mixed age level programs, in which we have some 3s and we have 4s mixed together. But we do also offer just 3s, just 4s, and then we have some mixed age level classrooms as well.
What would you say is the ideal student to teacher ratio?
So we are mandated by licensing state laws. And so if it is just all 3s, the ratio, according to the state, is 1 teacher to every 10 children. If it's just strictly 4s, the ratio is 1 teacher to every 12 children. And then if there's a mixed age classroom, then the ratio is 1 to 10. And so we abide by state licensing rules and regulations that we follow very closely and very honestly. And so the ratios range between 1 to 10, 1 to 12, between 1 to 10 and 1 to 12.
Now that you say that, I do remember that my ECE class was kind of small as well.
Yes.
And I made a lot of friends. I still have one friend from my ECE class that I talk to this day. And so I think that that ratio is perfect.
Yes.
But my follow-up question to that would be, you touched on this, right, because we're mandated by state law.
Yes.
What are some of the certifications that our DPS educators have to have in order to be ECE teachers?
Yes, so all of our teachers are highly qualified. And so there's a range between, there's a range between, there are some teachers that have focused their college careers on early childhood education, so they have bachelors in that area. And then we also have some teachers that have, when they started off their career journey, they thought about something else, but something in their lives gave them that fortitude and that passion to say, hey, early childhood is where it's at. And I say kudos to those teachers, because early childhood is where it's at. And so the state has credentials around those teachers as well, where they may have a bachelor's in another particular area, but then they are required to take additional early childhood licensure courses that qualifies them for early childhood education. And then all of our early childhood teachers are required to meet state licensure and qualification expectations.
So it's safe to say that our educators are top-notch and certified.
They are top-notch and certified.
I love it.
And then, I was a product of going through school. You were a product of going through school. We had a conversation prior to this.
Absolutely.
We know that we don't get all that we need through a college course. Some of the stuff we learn on the job.
On the spot, that's right.
So what we have in DPS is we have a team of early childhood specialists that really focus. They're in our schools. They really focus on professional development around what are the best practices at this time. Because if you know anything about education, it's ever evolving, right?
Absolutely.
What happened yesterday, it might not fit for today.
Right.
And so what happens tomorrow might not fit for the next day. And so we have a team of people that are constantly looking at cutting edge professional development practices to ensure that our educators, and not just our teachers, but our paraprofessionals
as well, have
the quality and the necessary credentials to be able to serve our kids at a high quality level. We say high quality all the time. It's not a cliche.
No.
High quality is what we're about. We're about making sure that our kids have a high quality program. We meet kids where they are. We understand that family needs are diverse. We understand that we live in a world where, I said this earlier, where one size does not fit all. And so we really pride ourselves on ensuring that we have programming to meet all of the needs of our kids as best as we can for the kids that we have an opportunity to serve.
You said something earlier that I wanted to highlight, which is all of the support that our ECE teachers and our paraprofessionals receive.
Yes.
I think is important for not only families, but for our prospective ECE teachers. If you're considering that age group as a profession, I think it's important for you to know we're not just going to put you in a classroom and expect you to perform.
That's right.
We're going to support you. We're going to continue moving through, like you said, best practices.
That's
What's
right.
the cutting edge? We talk about cutting edge technology, but this is an opportunity for us to talk about cutting edge processes and cutting edge education.
That's right. And it's so funny that you mentioned that. And I was having a conversation with some of my colleagues earlier, and I even see this as a part of my work moving forward as the director of schools and early education, is we really want to see our teachers and our paras as one unit. When I was a principal at one of our early childhood centers, it was my requirement that it wasn't that you were the teacher and you were the para. No, our kids need the teacher's expertise, and our kids need the para's expertise.
Absolutely.
And it was my requirement that the two people work together as a unit to serve in the best interest of kids. And so that is one thing that I want to do more of moving forward, is to ensure that there's that partnership. It's not about status. It's about what's in the best interest of our babies.
Right. When that's your North Star,
Absolutely.
you can't do wrong.
That's right.
Exactly.
And so that is something that we really strive on in DPS. We really strive on really supporting our teachers and our paras to ensure that there's a partnership. It's not about status. It's not about who has this and who has that. But it's about two people coming together to ensure that our babies, our kids, I say babies a lot.
Yeah.
Those are our babies.
Those are our babies.
To ensure that our babies, they have the best educational experience as possible, because again, we understand the dynamics and the power of ensuring that every child, if possible, has an opportunity to a pre-kindergarten start.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, I have two last questions for you.
Okay.
And these two questions are more from a parent's perspective, from a
Okay.
family's perspective, right? Like you said before, there's no one size fits all. It's not just parents, it's grandparents, aunties, uncles,
Yes.
everyone is involved. It's a family affair. So my question to you is, when should families start looking into ECE programs, pre-kindergarten programs? When is it appropriate to start looking?
There's not a set time for that. You know, there's many programs in DPS. We start at 3-year-olds. If I had it my way, we would start at toddlers.
At toddlers.
Do y'all have that on camera?
Yeah.
Did everybody say here had that on camera? I want to start at toddlers, but because I really just believe in just brain development and just the birth through 5 to 6 years of age and how powerful that is. But right now in DPS, we serve 3 to 4-year-olds.
Sure.
But there's from conception on.
That's
It's
when
not too early to start thinking about how can I set my baby up for the best success ever. And so I encourage parents through my advocacy of early child education, wherever you are, if there's a district that does not serve 0 through 2 or whatever,
come to DPS.
you listen. At DPS right now, we're starting at 3s.
Right.
You know, if I had it my way, we're going to start a little early. We'll see how that goes.
Right.
Put that on camera. Not making any promises.
We'll hold you to it.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. You're not going to put me on the spot, Javier. But I'm just expressing my love for early ed and the importance of just really planting seeds into birth through 5 years of age, where we know that brain development is occurring. And so I encourage parents to look for opportunities. You know, one of the other things that I love about DPS is we don't just focus on our internal programs. We also have community sites that we also focus on and that we support. And so some of our family, again, it's not a one size fits all, Javier. It's about what's in the best interest of all of our babies. And so we have community sites that we actually support and try to ensure that their programming is high quality as best as possible, because we know that some of our families, they don't want to be in a traditional educational system, but because of just different things around before care, after care, they choose some of our community sites that we also support. And so we have a range of opportunities for the families that we serve, because we do believe in the power of early access to education. And so with that being said, if DPS doesn't have the programming that a parent is looking for, also look at some community sites that might have that same level of programming. And our hope in supporting community sites is that some of those babies will also feed into our traditional systems or other programming that we offer in DPS, so that we can continue to support their educational development.
You touched on this earlier about educational development, brain development. My question to you from our parents would be, this is a serious question as it's going to get. Does my child need to be potty trained before they get to ECE?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. And so we abide by state licensing rules and regulations. And so kids do not necessarily need to be potty trained. All of our teachers are aware of this requirement.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have programs, we have professional development opportunities for teachers. If some of our teachers have never had kids. I'm one of those. I've never had a child,
Mm-hmm.
but when I started off as an ECE teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I had kids in my classroom that were not potty trained. So I learned through professional development
Mm-hmm.
how to go through that process of how to potty train a child,
Right.
And so if God ever blesses me with the opportunity to have a child, I have some tools in my toolkit that I could use personally.
Absolutely.
And so we have professional development for teachers that may have that experience, that may not have that experience, but that does not exclude a child from being a part of our DPS programming. We have processes and professional development opportunities to support our staff with ensuring that we're working with our families. And then the other thing that I love about our professional development opportunities, it does not just serve at the school level, but a lot of those resources we share with our families so that there's this joint unit, right? And so some of the things that we're trying at the school level, we encourage our parents to do at home so that the child is not like, wait a minute, when I get to school,
Right.
I do it like this, but when I get home, so there's this joint opportunity
Unified.
to ensure that we're supporting the kid as best as possible to meet the needs of human nature. Like, that's a part of life, learning how to go to the bathroom.
That really eases my anxiety, my heart, so that
Thank
our
you.
families understand that. Eric,
Yes.
it has been wonderful. I'll give you one bonus question. Is there anything else you want to add? You want to address the families of DPS? This is your opportunity to do so.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you for this opportunity for being here on today. I'm just elated, and I love any opportunity to be able to advocate for early childhood education. If you are a parent out there and you're listening to me, you're just like, and I know we're like post-COVID, and I know like COVID has changed a lot of our mindsets around schooling and all of those kinds of things. I would just encourage you to really explore what the benefits of early childhood education. There are so many benefits there that will set your child up for success. And I also will say in closing that there's no other place to send your child than Denver Public Schools.
I love that. Can you say that again? Repeat.
There's no other place. Now, and this is what I would say to my families all the time, Javier, is we're not perfect. You know, as a principal, I would say this to parents all the time as a school. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We're human. But at the end of the day, we have the best heart. We have the best interests of kids at heart, and that is to provide them with high quality programming. So if you're looking for a school district, look no further.
Look no further. You found it here at
Then
Denver
Public Schools. And if you need more information around our programming, again, our school choice process, all you have to do, the easiest way I think to navigate this is to go to our Denver Public Schools website. You can use the search engine to type in school choice. That will take you to the whole school choice process. And as we're unfolding this whole UPK process and all of that, our DPS website will update that information to really provide families with that. The other thing that I would add to that is families can also go to the Colorado State website to find more information about the UPK process as they're updating information about that. And then also, if you just want to know specifically more about our programming in DPS, you can also go to the Denver Public Schools website and just type in the search engine early childhood education, and you'll see what our mission, our vision is, and the type of programming that we offer for DPS.
Thank you so much, Eric. It has been a real pleasure having you here today at the EDUCA DPS podcast.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for joining us today on this great topic of UPK and preschool, ECE. It goes by many names. Again, thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you share, comment, like, tell your mom, tell your sister, tell everyone you know about the EDUCA DPS podcast. My name is Javier Ibarra. Thank you so much for joining us.